A moment, quiet, almost invisible, when something inside you stops trying, not loudly, not dramatically, just a subtle withdrawal. You sit in a room you've entered 100 times before, maybe an office, a classroom, a meeting, a family gathering, and for the first time it feels unfamiliar, not because the place has changed, but because you have. And the thought emerges not as rebellion but as recognition. This was never built for me. It is not anger. It is not a failure. It is not even a disappointment. It is something far more unsettling. A realization that the life you were told to grow in was shaped by hands that never knew you. And suddenly, the rules you followed so carefully feel less like guidance and more like confinement. You begin to wonder, quietly, almost guiltily, was I ever meant to belong here at all? Modern society has a very clear story about what a successful life looks like. It is efficient, structured, predictable. You move forward in measurable steps: education, career, stability, recognition, each milestone offering the illusion of progress. But beneath this system lies an assumption so deeply embedded that it often goes unquestioned, that if you follow the path correctly, you will feel whole. Yet for many, the opposite happens. The more precisely they follow the script, the further they drift from themselves. Because the system was never designed to understand the individual psyche. It rewards conformity, not authenticity; performance, not introspection; speed, not depth. It values what can be seen, titles, achievements, outputs, while quietly ignoring what cannot: meaning, identity, inner coherence, and so people learn to function long before they learn to understand themselves. They become competent but internally disoriented, productive but quietly disconnected. From the outside, everything appears aligned, but internally, something feels misplaced. And the longer this continues, the more difficult it becomes to distinguish between who you are and who you were shaped to be. Authority integration, Jungian perspective. This quiet fracture between outer life and inner truth was something Carl Jung understood deeply. He believed that much of human suffering does not come from failure, but from living a life that is not truly your own. He called this process individuation, the lifelong journey of becoming who you actually are rather than who you were conditioned to be. But individuation rarely begins with clarity. It begins with discomfort, with disillusionment, with the unsettling realization that the structures around you, career, identity, expectations, may not align with your deeper nature. Jung observed that many people spend the first half of their lives building a socially acceptable self, a persona designed to function within the system. But this persona, while necessary, is incomplete. It is a mask, and eventually the psyche begins to resist wearing it, not through rebellion, but through fatigue, through anxiety that cannot be explained, through restlessness that success cannot resolve, through a quiet sense of being misplaced in your own life. This is not dysfunction. It is a signal, a call inward, as Jung wrote in Essence. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Structured psychological framework. Stage 1. The adapted self. In the beginning, you adapt. You learn what is rewarded, what is acceptable, what earns approval. You adjust your behavior accordingly. You become efficient at navigating the system. You achieve, you perform, you progress. But this version of you is built outwardly. It is shaped by expectation, not by essence. And while it may bring stability, it often lacks depth. At this stage, discomfort is minimal because the cost of disconnection has not yet surfaced. You feel aligned enough to continue, but something remains, undefined. Stage 2. The subtle fracture. Then slowly something begins to shift. It does not announce itself. It appears in quiet moments: a lack of enthusiasm where there should be excitement, a fatigue that rest does not cure, a sense of emptiness after achieving what you once desired. You begin to notice contradictions. Success feels strangely hollow. Stability feels restrictive. Certainty feels artificial. You may try to fix it externally, change jobs, environments, routines, but the discomfort persists because the issue is not where you are. It is how you are positioned within yourself. This is the fracture, the moment when the adapted self no longer fully contains you. Stage 3, the realization. Then comes the moment, not loud, not cinematic, but undeniable. You realize, not intellectually, but viscerally, this system was never designed with my inner life in mind. It does not account for your complexity, your contradictions, your need for meaning beyond function. You begin to see that the path you followed was not wrong, but it was incomplete. And this realization carries both clarity and grief. Clarity, because you finally understand the source of your discomfort. Grief, because you recognize how much of yourself was set aside to belong. This is where many people hesitate, because awareness demands a response, and response requires change. Stage 4, the inner reorientation. If you continue, if you do not turn away from this realization, something begins to reorganize within you. Your priorities shift, not abruptly, but fundamentally. You begin to value alignment over approval, meaning over momentum, depth over appearance. You become less interested in fitting into structures that require you to fragment yourself and more interested in building a life that reflects your internal reality. This stage is not easy. It often involves uncertainty, periods of solitude, a sense of being between identities, but it is also where authenticity begins, where you are no longer adapting to the system, but questioning whether the system aligns with you. Emotional expansion. Scene 1. A man sits alone at night, the glow of a laptop illuminating his face. Emails answered, tasks completed, everything in order, yet he lingers, not because there is more to do, but because there is nowhere else he feels he belongs. The room is quiet, and in that silence he realizes that his life is full, but not meaningful. He closes the laptop slowly, and for the first time he does not know what to replace it with. Emotional expansion. Scene 2. An older woman walks through her home. The rooms are familiar, filled with years of effort, care, responsibility. Everything she was told to build stands complete. But as she moves through the silence, she feels a subtle distance from it all. Not regret, but a quiet question. Where, in all of this, am I? Authority integration, Frankl and Nietzsche. This search for meaning beyond structure was central to Viktor Frankl's work. He believed that human beings are not driven primarily by pleasure or success, but by meaning. And when meaning is absent, even the most structured life feels empty. Similarly, Friedrich Nietzsche warned that those who follow inherited values without questioning them risk living lives that are not truly their own. Both understood that the system, any system, cannot define your purpose. It can only offer frameworks. Meaning must be discovered internally. And that discovery often begins when external structures lose their authority over you. There comes a deeper realization, often later, quiet but profound. Time is not infinite, and the life you are living is not a rehearsal. The roles you play, the paths you follow, the identities you maintain, they will eventually come to an end, and in that awareness a question sharpens. If I continue like this, will I feel complete, not successful, not approved, but complete? Because at the end of life, the system does not evaluate you. There is no final performance review, no external validation that arrives to confirm your choices. There is only your own consciousness, reflecting on whether you lived in alignment with it. And this is where the realization deepens. The cost of belonging to the wrong system is not discomfort, it is the gradual loss of self. And the cost of reclaiming yourself is uncertainty. But one leads to quiet emptiness, the other to wholeness, to emotional expansion. Scene 3. A hospital room. Machines hum softly in the background. An older man lies still, eyes open, not focused on the present but on memory. Moments surface, not the ones he was praised for, but the ones he ignored, the paths he considered. but did not take. And in that quiet space, what matters is no longer what he built, but whether he ever felt fully alive within it. The moment you realize the system was never meant for you is not the end of belonging, it is the beginning of discernment. You are not rejecting structure, you are refining your relationship to it. You are no longer asking, how do I fit into this? But rather, does this allow me to remain whole? This shift is subtle, but it changes everything, because once you see clearly, you cannot unsee. And once you begin to align with yourself, even imperfectly, you move differently through the world, not faster, not louder, but more truthfully. And in that truth, there is a quiet form of freedom, not the freedom of escape, but the freedom of being internally undivided. If this reflection resonated with something you've been quietly feeling, you're not alone in it. And if you're drawn to exploring these deeper psychological ideas, consider subscribing or sharing this with someone who may be standing at the same quiet realization.